Hello, this is Fat Mystic Wizard here, coming at you with a one-shot top 10 discussion night from Team Chodwin. The top 10 discussion tonight involves TCG exclusives. Now, for newer players, you're probably more familiar with TCG exclusive archetypes, things like, recently we've had Dangers, we've had FAs, we've had Vendrids, we've had, I'm trying to think what the other TCG exclusive with Danger was. Oh yeah, we had Noble Knights, we've had Spirals, etc. Now, for the newer players, what you don't know is that TCG exclusive archetypes used to be one-shot cards, like just a list of 10 random cards that support other archetypes that were just unique. And a lot of these were meta warping. So today, my top 10 video is of top 10 TCG exclusive cards, or world premiere cards. There are 3 rules to this. First of all, they had to be meta relevant and meta warping at some point. 2, it is 1 per archetype. No 2 archetypes, or no archetype gets 2 cards. And 3, it could not have been part of an archetype itself. It can't be like a part of BA or Cosmos or Noble Knights. So without further ado, here we go. My number 10 is from Order of Chaos, Wind Up Shark. Now, another TCG exclusive, which is going to get honorable mention in this scenario, is Wind Up Zenmaines, but I don't think it had much of an impact as Wind Up Shark. But anywho, Wind Up Shark, and by the way, side note, the OCG didn't get these cards for months, if not even about a year. So we had these first, and they completely changed the deck that the OCG had. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. So Wind Up Shark gave Wind Up Loop even more life. Because what Wind Up Shark does is when a Wind Up effect would be activated or normal special, you could special summon sharks from your hand, which would trigger Wind Up Magician and things like that. And he was really good and made the Wind Up loop a lot easier to do. In fact, just opening up 1 Magician and 1 shark and equaled ripping your opponent's hand at least of 3 cards. And if you have a Pot of Avarice, they would be empty-handed. Now, the reason this isn't higher on the list is because that outside of that deck, it just didn't really do as much, and it wasn't Shark itself that was warping, it warped the deck itself. But the warping card in that deck was Carrier, which was not, so that's why it's not higher on the list. So, Wind Up Shark is my number 10. For my number 9, we have the Counter Trap Infernity Barrier from the Secret Forces. Infernities had a bad rep to them because of the amount of cheating that players would be doing. For those that don't know, Infernities is an archetype based on to use their effects, you have to have an empty hand. You have to have no cards in your hand to use their effects. And in the OCG, the deck worked a lot differently because you would just bring out a whole bunch of Synchros of Spam and loop Infernity Archfiend, which is currently limited in the TCG, to search out your deck. When we got Infernity Barrier, it gave the deck something the OCG didn't have. A very good source of protection. And if you open the right hand, you can end the board with an Infernity Doom and 3 Infernity Barriers and a Void Ogre Dragon when we got it later. That's insane. And that was some of the first kind of lockdown decks we had. The reason this is not higher on the list is because you had, again, Infernity were a troll deck, they had a lot of cheating behind it, and all that. But that card in general warped the Infernity deck because it gave them a lot more power and protection. So, Infernity Barrier at number 9. For my number 8, we have Evolzar Dolka from Photon Shockwave. The OCG had already been having mild results with Dino Rabbit. But the thing is, then we had Logia, which had 1 fatal weakness. It didn't really do anything to monster effects, which were slowly becoming prevalent. So Logia wasn't going to do anything to an already established board, unfortunately. But the TCG gave us Evolzar Dolka, which, unlike Logia, negated monster effects solely. And it only had to detach 1 instead of 2 materials for it. So we had a deck called Dino Rabbit in the TCG, which did a lot better in the OCG, because we had a deck of a rank 4 that could negate monster effects. So if you're up against a monster effect heavy deck, let's say Inzectors, you could just go into Dolk instead. If you're playing a more slow Amir match, or you're playing something like that relied on a single summon, like Wind-Ups, you could just play Logia. The reason this didn't get higher on the list is it wasn't generic, and yeah, so Dolka at number 8. For my number 7 is Gateway the 6 from Stardust Overdrive. Now, when that card first came out, it was very underwhelming. A lot of people didn't realize what the card did. It wasn't until we got the legendary Six Samurais and Storm of Ragnarok where the real power of this card was unleashed. This card single-handedly made Six Sams viable in the TCG. Now, the reason that the deck got hit so quickly was because back then we had combined ban lists and the OCG had had Gateway for a while because of their extra pack. In my opinion, had Gateway been put in the Storm Ragnarok as a TCG exclusive instead of Stardust Overdrive, we would probably have to deal with that deck for a very, very long time. Because the OCG would have waited almost a year to print that, and we would have had to deal with it. So, but yeah, Gateway was stupid because when you had multiples on the field, anytime a samurai monster would be summoned, you would put 2 Bushido counters on it, and those things would stack very quickly and be able to give you infinite searches and infinite attack if you did it right. So, Gateway of the 6 at number 7. The reason it's not higher is we didn't have it at 3 to where it mattered in the TCG long enough for it to matter. In fact, I think we only had it legal at 3 for like 2 weeks. So, for my number 6, we have Xx-Saber Dark Soul. Now, for those that have been around the game long enough, we as TCG players know the horror of Xx-Saber Dark Soul. Because the way it was worded, it says, if when this card is sent to the graveyard during the end phase, if this card was sent to the graveyard, add 1 Xx-Saber monster from your deck to your hand. The way that the TCG ruled it was that was every time it went to the graveyard. So if you keep reviving it and sending it, reviving and sending it, it was for every time it was sent. So if you sent the same copy 8 times, you got 8 searches. That was never how the card was designed, but that's how it was ruled in the TCG. And we had to deal with that ruling for almost a year before the OCG corrected us. Now, why it's also not higher on the list is because the meta warping part of it was not correct. Now, for the TCG for a year, it was correct, and that was stupid. And the advantages it generated was just insane. Like, imagine if things like Skarm got its effect multiple times in the end phase. Imagine if Skarm got sent 3 times, you search 3 fiends. Like, insta-ban in people's eyes. So, Xx-Saber Dark Soul from the Shining Darkness at number 6. Oh, Fernie Barrier is also Shining Darkness as well. For my number 5, from Starstrike Blast, Droll and Lockbird. Now, when this card first came out, it seemed like trash, because back then searching was positive and used a lot, but not to the extremities they use today. Like back in the day when I was playing around that time, you might search 1 or 2 times in a turn and maybe drew 1 card, which wasn't enough to warrant something like Droll and Lockbird. But then fast forward a few years to Prophecies, where you're searching 8, 9 times in a turn, and it's like, okay, Droll. Droll and Lockbird is one of those things that even in today's game is still one of the best TCG exclusive cards of all time, in my opinion. Only be beaten out by another card on this list, which I'll get to in a minute, when it comes to its viability in today's game. Droll and Lockbird, the reason I didn't put it higher is it took so long for that card to get recognized as being good. So, Droll and Lockbird from Starstrike Blast at number 5. For number 4 was Reborn Tengu from Extreme Victory Sneak Peek promo. This is probably the only sneak peek promo that was ever printed that actually did something, like highly did something. Reborn Tengu states when it leaves the field, outside of being returned to the deck, you special one Tengu from your deck, which was really good. Back then, you would sink into it like you go into sink into 5, special another, sink into 5, special another, and pot of average them all back into the deck. This card was so good that even the sneak peek promos, which were guaranteed the day of the sneak that I did, I got my playset. But it cost me a penny. It cost me, I think, $40 for the playset, plus my entry, so $60 for a playset. Because sneak peek promos usually don't be that expensive because they're not that really good. But Tengu, at that day, for a lot of people, profited your sneak. Like, you paid $20 to enter the sneak, and you could sell it and pay for your entry plus some. And Plant Synchro, obviously. So, number 3, which is also from the same set, Tour Guide from the Underworld. Our lovely Bay Tour Guide. When she first came out, she seemed very underwhelming. She just seemed bad, where you special summoned and you couldn't use the monster for a synchro summon. Then we get the beautiful card type known as XYZs, where she became an instant rank 3, and her popularity just skyrocketed to the point where playsets of this card were $400-$500 because she was a secret rare. And I believe that she is probably the best TCG exclusive monster that's not a hand trap, in my opinion. Tour Guide is just one of those cards that, even today, if were to go back to 3, I think would be really good in Burning Abyss. That was the deck that got it relimited. So that and the TCG, at first, people thought you detached Sang and got the search. That was a funny thing, Kevin. That was so wrong. But anywho, the next two are pretty generic, and a lot of people don't remember this. My number 2 is Allure of Darkness from Phantom of Darkness. Allure of Darkness was so powerful in Teledad that it actually had to be emergency limited in the TCG before the OCG even had it. Allure of Darkness back then was in a time where banishing didn't mean nothing. The draw was what really mattered, and the resources you gained back then were ridiculous because you had 3 Destiny draws, 3 Malleys, 3 Diamond Dudes, 3 Allures, and you had all this power and draw, which back then was actually unheard of. In today's game, that's pretty much a joke, but back then that was completely unheard of to draw half your deck in one turn. And it gave birth to one of the most powerful Tier 0 formats of all time, Teleport Dark Armed Dragon. And that deck, to this day, still holds infamy. And probably in my opinion, as a Tier 0 format deck at least it was a skilled Tier 0. Teledad mirror matches were some of the best in the game. Skill is what won. So anywho, but that's why Allure was limited, and Allure was probably probably the best TCG spell we have ever gotten, period. So, yeah. I really didn't have any honorable mentions because for the most part, most of them pretty self-explanatory outside of wind-up Zen mains. And yeah, that was pretty much it for the most part. And Grandmaster of the Six Samurai, I'm sorry, that was another honorable mention. And I think it was one of the Gladiator Beasts was TCG exclusive. I can't remember. I think Chariot was. That was another Ultimate, and Charge of the Light Brigade, which probably should have been on this list. But for the number 1 TCG exclusive archetype card of all time, well, not TCG archetype, TCG exclusive of all time, my bad, will be, a lot of people will not realize this, was Max C from Storm of Ragnarok. Max C is currently, last I checked, the only one on this list that is currently forbidden. Yes. In fact, a lot of these cards are currently limited right now, like Gateway, Turga, but Maxi is the only one forbidden. Maxi, when it first came out, was literally like a $5 secret because you had 6 samurais looping to the point where they're supposed to so many times they deck you. So, and one thing, a little story I'll tell you guys, is one day I was looking on eBay, looking to build Nordics, one of the biggest regrets I ever made, and I ran into a listing for 8 Max C's in a bidding war that ended up ending at $32. I wish I would have bid on it. 8 secret Max C's, and not even about a month later, Wind Up Loop was created. Or no, it wasn't a month. It was like, it wasn't quite a month. Maybe it was just a little bit of 6 months later. The Wind Up Loop was created in the OCG, and they hit $120 a piece. Oh my god, I beat myself for not bidding on that every day. But Max C is one of those cards that honestly should be back in the 3 of the TCG, but that's not the point of this video. Max C, in my opinion, was the best TCG exclusive card ever printed, beating out things, like I said previously, like Tour Guide, Reborn Tengu, because Max C, last I checked, I could be wrong, correct me in the comment section below, is the only TCG exclusive card currently on the Forbidden section of the Forbidden Limited list. So, that was my top 10 TCG exclusives. If you guys have better ones that you think are better in your opinion, post them in the comments below. I do appreciate this. Sorry I could not give you actual physical cards because a lot of these I don't have because of the test of time. So, yeah. I will see you guys later. We will hopefully see you at YCS Columbus at the 200th. I can't wait to maybe meet some of you guys and maybe get some duels done. So, I will talk to you later. Team Fat Mystic Wizard. Yeah, Team Fat Mystic Wizard. That's cute. Fat Mystic Wizard from Team Jodwin. Signing out.